Before we get today's video started, be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell. Only about 7.5% of you guys that watch these videos have the notification bell on. Turn that notification bell on after you subscribe to stay in the know on Texas Tech men's basketball all year long on your one-stop shop for everything Texas Tech men's basketball. Of course, I'm talking about the Back to 12 podcast channel. All right, in today's video, we are going to discuss the matrix schedule for Texas Tech men's basketball. And for those of you that don't know what a matrix schedule is, I'll explain that here in a bit. But we know who Texas Tech is going to be playing this year, and there's some doozies on there. So be sure to like the video if you're excited about Grant McCasland and year number 1 of the Texas Tech Red Raiders era with him at the helm. And hey, honestly, let's just jump right into this. So this is according to the Big 12 and Texas Tech Athletics, a matrix schedule. For those that don't know, it basically tells you like who and where you're playing, but not when. I don't know any other way to describe that any better. So that's basically what we're doing right now. So let's jump into the home and away. And what I mean by that is you will play this team at home and you will play them on the road as well. You have 5 teams that you will be doing that this season with. Will the Red Raiders, and it is Baylor, UCF, Oklahoma State, TCU, and those Texas Longhorns, right? And obviously, those are the big ones that stand out. The games against Texas, you get one at home and you get one on the road before they belt out of the conference and head down to the SEC. But you also get one in Fort Worth, another game in DFW that has been a priority for Grant McCasland. You obviously get one with Vanderbilt in the non-con, but now you get another one in the actual Big 12 conference regular season schedule. That makes a ton of sense if you're a Red Raider, right? Like you've already seen what you can do in terms of going down to Austin and take over that building. You did the same thing in Fort Worth. So that's a great, really opportunity for Texas Tech not to have 2 more home games, but at least divvy it up 50-50, if you know what I mean. So that stands out. Also kind of cool to see Texas Tech is getting to go to Orlando in year number 1. Of them being in the conference, obviously that being UCF. So really interested to see what kind of home court environment they have down there now that they are in one of those Power 6 conferences when it comes to college basketball. And Texas Tech will get to be one of those first home games for the Golden Knights in the first year of the Big 12 conference for them. All right, let's move to the home games. You will only be facing these teams at home. BYU, Cincinnati, Kansas, and Kansas State. Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, you get to play Kansas and Kansas State at home. You don't have to go to Allen Fieldhouse or the Little Apple after the success they had last year in year number 1 of Jerome Tang. If you're a Red Raider fan, sign you the hell up for that, right? I mean, that's awesome right there. You still get Kansas at home. That's big time if you're Texas Tech. Always a sellout crowd there at the USA. Also another one, Cincinnati. That's a sneaky team. They've got a really, really solid team. They've done a good job in the transfer portal. They've got a couple of 4-stars coming in there as well. I really like what Cincinnati and Coach Miller is doing right there. Yeah, that's a good opportunity for Texas Tech to stay at home and face a sneaky team that I don't think people are giving enough credit for, or to, I should say, in the Big 12. All right, let's transition to strictly away games, right? And this is interesting. You got to go to Ames, Iowa. You got to go to Houston. You got to go to Norman, and then you got to go to Morgantown, okay? So Iowa State, Houston, Oklahoma, West Virginia. A couple of things that stand out. The first one, it's going to be tough as hell to play at Houston. I mean, simple and plain. That place is going to be a ruckus environment. They are really well coached by Coach Sampson down there. Really good team. Even though they lost a lot of guys, obviously Sasser off to the NBA. He's playing for the Pistons. You got Walker up in Indiana. Lose another guy there as well. But, I mean, they're bringing in one of the best recruiting classes in the country, and they have one of the best head coaches in the country. That's a combination for winning. It's going to be a tough game for the Red Raiders down in H-Town. Now, I am curious to see how many people actually show up to that game from a Texas Tech alumni perspective because, again, you think about Texas Tech, DFW is the number 1 alumni base in the state. Houston's number 2. So how many Texas Tech Red Raider alumni show up to that game against the Cougars down in Houston? I think that could be one of those games where maybe it's not 50-50 like TCU or in Austin, but maybe 60-40, and that could be a big deal for Texas Tech in terms of 60 for Houston, 40% for the Red Raiders. Another one, I mean, let's just be real. It's hard to play in Ames and Morgantown, right? I mean, Texas Tech has 2 wins in Morgantown since West Virginia has been added to the Big 12. It's a tough place to play, and so is Ames. Obviously, Hilton is just freaking rocking up there every time. Also, what happened to Cyclone Larry? Let me know if you know on Twitter what happened to the guy. He said he was going to go get a beer. Now he's gone. We miss you, Cyclone Larry. Let us know. But again, from a Texas Tech perspective, playing in Ames is difficult. Playing in Morgantown is difficult. But if we're being honest, right, Texas Tech got a pretty damn good draw here, right? Like, you get Kansas and Kansas State at home. Again, BYU comes in to the 806 as well as Cincinnati. You get to play Texas at home, TCU at home, and Baylor. I mean, you're looking arguably in the Big 12, right? Like, just looking at potentially preseason expectations in terms of the poll. Baylor's going to be in the top 5. You get them at home. Texas is going to be in the top 5. You get them at home, right? TCU, probably top 6. Get them at home. Kansas, definitely top 5. You get them at home. Kansas State, I would assume they're in the top 6 as well. And then the only one in the top 6 that I think is clear-cut that you don't get at home is Houston. You got a pretty good draw if you're Texas Tech. Now, obviously, it's the Big 12. Any given night, we all know that. It's one of the toughest conferences to play in America, and now it's even gotten more tougher with teams like Cincinnati, obviously Houston, and what they've done. They've gone to the Final Four once in the past 2 years. Really good team, right? Like, all in all, Texas Tech got a pretty good draw here. Again, when you look at the home games strictly for Texas Tech, right? They're at the bottom of the screen on the ticker down there. You've got Baylor, UCF, Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas, BYU, Cincinnati, Kansas, and Kansas State. The things that stand out most when it comes to that, right? Again, obviously ideal that you get a home and home with Texas. What I mean is you have a home game with Texas and away game with Texas. Same with TCU. You actually get to play in Fort Worth. That's a big deal, right? Another one, you get Kansas and Kansas State at home. You don't have to go to Allen Fieldhouse, and you don't have to go to Little Apple. That's huge for Texas Tech because, as we all know, the Red Raiders play much better in the 806 because of the raucous environment that Red Raider Nation, Raider Riot, and all those guys create there at the USA. All right. When it comes to the away games, all right, you got Baylor. You still play them at home. You play Baylor, UCF, Oklahoma State, TCU, and Texas both at home and away, okay? But the games that you have strictly away are Iowa State, Houston, Oklahoma, West Virginia. Obviously, the one that stands out there is Houston. They are a team that is going to be really good and probably be in the top 4 of the Big 12 when it's all said and done. Playing in West Virginia, you don't really know what you're going to get this year with that team, especially with the Bob Huggins controversy and everything that's going on right now. If you want to call it controversy, I don't know if that's the right word, but I guess it's the word I decided to use on the spot, right? And then Ames, TJ's got a great class coming in. They kept some guys. They got their first 5-star recruit up there to the Cyclones, probably going to start right away. They're going to be a solid team, right? Those are going to be difficult games to win because every game in the Big 12 that is on the road is difficult to win. It doesn't matter. Some are a little bit easier than others. Obviously, Allen Fieldhouse isn't the same as BYU and Provo, right? It's just not, but they're all difficult to win. But to say that the hardest games on the road for you this year are Houston in terms of strictly on the road. You don't get to play them in the 806. It's Houston and then probably Iowa State or West Virginia. You got a great deal if you're Texas Tech here. Now, again, it's going to be one of the toughest conferences in America, regardless of if you're playing at home or away. But strictly getting Kansas and Kansas State at home, that's gigantic for year number 1 of Grant McCasland and the potential success for the Red Raiders. The upset aspect of things goes much higher. And let's be real, Kansas is probably going to be the preseason number 1. So it would be an upset if the Red Raiders beat them in the 806. But you do not have to go to Allen Fieldhouse. You do not have to go to Manhattan. That is absolutely critical. Just realizing you don't have to go to the state of Kansas this year if you're Texas Tech. So there you go. One more time, if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn those notifications on. Only 7% of you guys have the notification bell on. What are we doing? Staying in the know on Texas Tech basketball all year long right here on your one-stop shop for everything Texas Tech men's basketball. Of course, talking about the Back to 12 podcast channel.